Welcome to the webinar today, which is on our preparing for our 24-25 budget cycle. I'd just first like to start with an acknowledgement of traditional owners of the lands that we're all zooming in from today. As government entities, we have a bit more of a key role in land administration and asset management, so it's important we keep to continue to reflect and respect elders past, present and future. Today, I'm on Shire lands, and the city of Greater Bendigo is also on Tangerang country, but I'm sure you're all on different lands from lots of places I can see on the Zoom session today. My name's Nathan Morsillo, and I'm a CFO at the city of Greater Bendigo, and I'm on the executive group of FinPro, and it's my pleasure in a very open office at the moment to chair this session today. They say that time flies when you're having fun, and suddenly I've been through 5 budget cycles, 2 local government acts, 1 financial plan and 1 asset plan, but quite a few budgets and another one coming soon. So that's what we're here to talk a little bit about today. Firstly, I just wanted to say a big congratulations to everybody for making it past 30 June. Well done, good job, give yourself a pat on the back. Obviously, for a lot of people that I've been speaking to recently, the year-end work is actually peaking now as auditors ask about your landfill provisions or land under roads or something else kind of fun in the financial statements. So I hope you're all looking after each other and yourselves as we get through this busy time. Now, for some people, you will have bounced straight out of your June adoption of the budget and then turned your mind into the end of financial year topics. Today's a bit of a chance just to have a bit of a think and maybe take control in advance of the next budget cycle about planning for that 24-25 budget process. We've selected speakers and councils that have done something a little bit different maybe than just the 223 process, but we know that's a lot of people still were, and others have tried a few different things so far this year. Now, we do have some questions that have already been submitted, but if you're thinking it and you've got other questions to the panel, chances are there's at least 20 other people on this Zoom call today that are thinking it as well. So please encourage you, if you haven't done it before and it's been a while since you've been on Zoom, have a look down the bottom, there's a chat button. You can stick a question in there and we'll do our best to get through those as we go through today. Just add those into the chat box as needs be. We do have queries that were sent in beforehand, so you don't need to resend them if they were emailed to Gab before yesterday. We've got those and we'll work through some of that. Thank you for those that put those in early. You get first preference. You'll get better service. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to start by introducing our panel today. Our first panelist is, and thank you to all our panelists, Fiona Ray, Manager Finance, at Golden Plains Shire, and a member of the FinPro executive team. Fiona's a CPA and has 25 years experience in and out of local government. Just give away Fiona and see if it comes up so people can see who, there you are, there's Fiona. Thank you to Leah Mullins, who's Coordinator Management Accounting at the City of Greater Bendigo. Leah's a chartered accountant with a background in the external audit industry roles in the last 8 years in local government, first at Macedon and Rangers, then at the City of Greater Bendigo, leading the budget in a job share role. And also welcome to Kate Heissenbuttel, who many may not have met, who's Manager Corporate Performance at the City of Monash. Kate is an experienced planner, change manager and project manager who oversees Monash's corporate planning and project management office, risk management, business assurance and service planning. Kate project manages council's budget development, including the engagement approach. So welcome, thank you panel members. I'm going to hand over to others to speak rather than me now. And I might ask first to each of our panel members, and Fee, if it's all right, we might start with you down there in Golden Plains. Just can you tell us a little bit about your budget process last year round? We might get some slides up for that, just a slide or two each. Just how did it go? Maybe what you did differently if you did do something differently, and if not, that's okay. Give us a little bit about the high level process. So we might go Fiona and then Leah and then Kate for that, just to hear a little bit from each of the councils. Thank you.
Hi, thanks, Nathan. So I'm from Golden Plains Shire, Manager of Finance, and we are located in Bendigo, which is located in between Ballarat, Geelong and Melbourne, sort of central to that area. We're a fairly small council. We've got a finance team of 13, and that includes our core finance team, our rates team and procurement. So as far as the staff that are involved in the budget process. We've only got 2 accountants in the team and myself, so a very small team. What we did, I've been involved in the last 5 budgets since I've been here at Golden Plains. What we did have over the last couple of years is feedback from the community, just talking about how they feel that we have the engagement process in May every year, but they didn't really have any opportunity to have any real input into the budget because they felt we'd already prepared the budget and their input wasn't really going to change anything. So we took that feedback on board and we introduced an extra session. So in February, we included an online workshops with the community. We also published a survey prior to those sessions where we asked members of the public for inputs on some key themes. So what we published a number of questions which were linked to our council plan just to get inputs on what the community felt was important to them. And in that February engagement session, we really focused on educating the community on the process and really what funds we have available. Because really when we have to fund all of our services that we provide and our capital program, we don't have a lot left in that bucket of discretionary money that we can have much of an influence in doing something different with. So we really wanted to sort of drive that message through to the community of we are fairly constrained. Our revenue sources are fixed and constrained. We also have a number of services we need to cover the costs of, so we don't have a lot of discretionary money available. So that was one big focus of the process, making sure that we educated the community. So we touched on this slide that we have here of just what's the time frame of the budget process and how we went out in February for that consultation and that online survey. And then in March, we update our budget with any feedback that we have. We sort of build in any inputs into the long-term financial plan as well. In April, we were a bit of a combination of the old process with a little bit of a few tweaks. So we still went to our council in April with a draft budget, and then we still placed that draft budget on consultation in May, also encouraging another round of feedback from the community, and we adopted the budget in June. So we were sort of a little bit of a hybrid approach of the old process, but a little bit of a tweak of adding in that extra consultation session in February. But I guess the focus of that session in February was really to give the community the signal that we are listening. We are really on board for having a good listen to your inputs and feeding through and considering those inputs. So the key messages we really had to get across was we incorporate major initiatives every year, and we make sure that we include any major initiatives that the council would like to cover off. We need to then balance it up with the funds that are available. So the next slide sort of touches on just those key messages we really needed to drive through of how our resources are prioritised. We need to deliver certain programs to the community and services as well. When we were considering anything new to the budget, we list those as major initiatives. So we identify anything new that we'd like to add to the business as usual and prioritise those. Also considering our council plan initiatives and actions. And then we encourage input from residents. And we really, as far as that discretionary bucket of money we have available, it's only around 3% of our total expenditure that we do have that's discretionary spending. And that's after allowing for funding for all of our services and our capital program. And yeah, we just included that multi-stage process of the February engagement, feeding into updating the budget with anything that we built in, and also another process another option for input in May when that draft budget was placed on consultation. So we did adopt our budget in June after that process. So that's really, I guess, thoughts that we do differently. We didn't have a lot of take up from the public in that May session. So going forward, we'll probably consider just having that early session in February for the public consultation, because we really didn't get much input in the May process. It was much more effective going out early. So that's really my wrap up of the process that we did at Golden Plains.
Amazing, Fee. Thanks for that. Leah, are you happy to jump in next?
Yep, sure am. Just for everyone playing along from home, I just got a call about half hour ago from school to pick up my sick little preppy. Luckily, I got onto the husband after a few calls, so I'm here. Bit rattled, but I can do this. So just quickly before I talk through what's on screen, just at a really high level, our last year's budget process at Bendigo, we dropped the old section 223 draft budget process, and we went early for our formal community engagement piece. So that basically allowed us to adopt the budget in May. And I'll just flag with that the shift there that happened for the budget process the year before, so 22-23. We did both pieces, similar to what Fiona described, different format, but we did both. And that allowed us to show the councillors how much more beneficial it would be to feed all that into the process rather than it being an afterthought. And then what happened was we got very little submissions or useful information from the draft process. So we were really set up to sell to the councillors, hey, this is better to do it earlier. We didn't get much later. And then we were able to sell them all the other benefits that would come from an earlier adoption, which our main selling points were kind of freeing up that space in June for planning, being able to hit the button for recruitment, procurement, really be ready to go with, have tenders already out there and done and ready to hit the ground when July came along. And also that benefit of feeding making a more authentic engagement process by it, feeding into the process rather than just an afterthought at the end when things are basically done and set. So that was the shift that happened, and it really happened across 2 years. So the timeline you can see on screen there kind of shows the really high level, but shows the flow of how we run our process. So we start pretty early. So the September, October, November, internally we have officers compiling everything for CapEx, new renewal, OPEX-based budget build, any new initiatives coming out of OPEX. And then just towards the end of that November, we run the community engagement platform, which we're probably going to pull a little bit earlier this year. So then that gives us all of our pieces of information and different sources and things that need prioritisation. And then we internally have December and Jan to review all that, get all our ducks in a row for how we present all that information to councillors. And then we've got Feb, March for council briefings and workshops to kind of piece off different sections of the process with them. And then that leaves us with April for the actual document preparation, or the review of that, and then we went for a May adoption. So that's our process in a high level. I think I'll leave it there because I think we'll chat a bit more on the engagement detail shortly.
Amazing. Thanks, Leah. That's great. Kate, welcome to FinPro. Thanks for being along today. Can you tell us a little bit how you rolled at Monash?
Cool. Thank you for the invitation. It's wonderful. Similar to Leah and Greater Bendigo, we did an upfront engagement, changed our engagement approach last year with the aim of getting the final budget endorsed or adopted in May. A couple of components. We actually run a almost 11-month budget planning cycle with our council. So instead of Leah's slide showing the process internally on making sure all the parts are delivered on time, my slide really is showing of the process or the rollout that we do with our councillors and the community. So our internal processes and timeframes and those big chunks are very similar to Greater Bendigo, but we do a lot more in the first half of the financial year, setting our long-term financial position, trying to do more work around the maturity or financial literacy, and really understanding what is the financial dilemma that that our organisation is really grappling with. And so that when we start the councillor workshops back in February, when we're going through all the capital works bids, the fees and charges and all the components of the budget, we've kind of got the alignment and everyone on the same page. That's the plan or the philosophy. It doesn't work that way. I think there are some success in what we've done in the last 2 years. Some changes over the last 2 years for us. Again, ditching the community engagement on the draft budget and doing upfront engagement, aiming to get the budget adopted in May, more understanding and a lot more internal communications. I will just give a quick overview of our community engagement because there's sort of 2 financial years in play that we've got some experience with now. So last year and this year we're doing upfront engagement. We changed the area focus a little bit. So the community usually are having input into 3 components. One is we always give our community the option of pushing ahead or giving council their community project submissions for consideration. But the other 2, there's a little bit of movement that we can play with. A lot of online and in-person engagement and a lot of promotion. Last year, we're not doing it this year. Last year, we did a deliberative panel that ran over the month of March, externally facilitated, but they grappled with the problem. The question there is, should council continue to maintain services and assets at our current levels, or do these need to change? So that was the question we put to them to consider. That's it from me so far.
Amazing. Thanks for that, Kate. Look, given Leah's, I might just slight diversion from the questions on just specific budget process. Leah's roles, that management accounting coordination on the way to a finance manager, and Fiona's got the finance manager role. Could you just tell us how your role and that structurally kind of fits in? Is that okay just to tell a little bit more about that at the corporate Monash?
My role, so the budget is more than just our finances. It's the organisation's annual plan. So our finance team actually do most of the budget development. However, there's all these other components of making sure we're aligning to our council plan, the alignment to the community vision, all of our measures, how are we performing corporately. My role is sort of project managing and bringing the relevant parts of the organisation together through the budget process.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for that. We've spoken a bit there about engagement across all of the areas there, and there's lots of parts to the budget process, but the engagement part is the bit that drives a lot of the timetable things that we've spoken about there. So I guess I'd be interested in everybody on the panel's reflections on what were some of the learnings about the use of panels or even just engagement generally with community groups, individuals, etc., through each of the processes. Now, Kate, you started on engagement. Are you happy to go first on that question?
Yeah, maybe just repeat the question back to me, Nathan, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're right. What were some of the learnings in the use of either panels or how you engage with the community groups and individuals on these tricky finance, budget, service? Because sometimes that might save a lot of our members' time later if there's any learnings on the way into doing some more of that, or how it might be.
Yeah, I think we all struggle with what can you actually realistically engage your community on. I think that's a problem most of us have on that annual basis. We did the deliberative engagement panel last year. It was halfway through the council term, number one, so it was a good opportunity. When we did the council plan, COVID was just ramping up and hitting us, so we thought it was a really good opportunity to use that panel to sort of are we reflecting the changes? Is the council plan, therefore our budget, still relevant? So we used it that way a little bit more than doing deliberative engagement specifically about the annual budget. It was a bigger piece. Our upfront engagement, I think the first thing is read your engagement strategy or policy or your framework, whatever it is. You have one, you have to have one. And the budget's often listed with a level of engagement using IAP2 or something of what is expected. So we have to engage, not inform or consult on our budget. So then it comes to the question of, to make that meaningful, to make actually us really doing engagement, what are the questions, and design your engagement around that. So it's really hard not to do tokenistic engagement on budgetary matters, but there are lots of things that the community have a way of influencing the bigger picture of what council delivers and what's important to them, that is important for our decision makers to have, so that they can then make budget decisions. So there's a way of kind of thinking about, yes, you may not be able to get into the nuts and bolts of fees and charges or whatever, it's too cumbersome to engage on. But if you take one step back or two steps back or three steps back, there is value of doing engagement. You've just got to find what is right for you, your organisation, your community.
Thanks, Kate. Maybe Leah, any thoughts on engagement broadly?
Yeah. Look, I really struggle with this, this question of what is budget engagement and how do we make it valuable and not just a tick box exercise. I might just talk to our engagement a little bit because I probably didn't cover that too much before, but we are lucky we've got a subscription to Social Pinpoint that used to be called the Hive. So we've got that great online tool to use. And we really tried to shift away from a submission style engagement the year just gone. But we still really, even though we framed it up as we want your council plan priorities, because I really feel that the council plan is the big piece of engagement for the budget. It is. It's the best piece of community engagement we do as an organisation, and it's the most thorough and extensive. It's the most fair with that deliberative panel and the education. But so to me, that is really the big piece of community engagement. But so we tried to frame last year's as tell us your council plan priorities, and there was drop-down boxes. But then we still had the big text box field and attachments, and we still ended up with basically the exact same section 2223 submission style. Your regular submitters, your organised community groups, just basically the exact same process. And we still ended up with things kind of slipping into the budget via councillors that really, it didn't really stack up against all the internal priorities that come through from asset managers and, people who are out there in the organisation and know the participation rates of different clubs and which clubs due for a new cricket net, all that sort of information. So I really still struggle with how do we make this meaningful. So we're heading down, we're going to be doing more of a survey style for the coming year that I know particularly a lot of the Metro Council have used before, the $100 and the categories, and trying to get more of the sell to councils with it is to get more tangible information for strategic decision making. So whilst we know there's very little influence that the community can have on the budget in terms of dollar value, it's when they're looking at that, what's the new asset investment and what are the new initiatives and the new roles that we're putting up, do they kind of align with what the community are the most interested in? So whilst that survey style won't necessarily, it's hard for a community member to understand that building roads costs significantly more than, a different piece of community work. If we just get a bit of a flavour of where we're getting the most hits, they've got that information so that, say we get some extra LRCI, if we get a tracks and trails type theme, they can channel that money into more footpaths and tracks type work. So that's sort of where we're at the moment, and a big part of it is getting the councils along for the journey.
Yeah. Good one. Amazing. Look, and that's probably a good segue, though, Fee, you're welcome to jump in with some engagement stuff, but I feel like we've got a good spread there, and you probably had bits of both of that process in February and then May. One of the key challenges in all of this is how it's managed with the exec and councillors, but particularly councillors perhaps. I guess any reflections on, and it's actually one of the first questions we got in there was, did councillors want to be involved in the annual, thank you, Carol, for that one, annual action development? That's one of our questions that got submitted separately as well. So any reflections on managing or how the process worked for councillors in your process and timetable specifically? I'm happy to leave that open, and I'll let you guys unmute and jump in. But Fee, you've the least to speak, so I'm happy to go there first if you like.
Sure. I guess for us, it's involving them early. So we involve councillors early, and as we were building up the budget, we would have workshops to update them on that information, give them the opportunity for input. So one of the first things that we've sort of done is look at our capital program and start pulling that together. So we work with the business, with the key stakeholders in the business to develop that, and then make sure that they're involved and they have some input. But it's really just having those workshops every month for over a 6 month sort of period, sometimes twice a month, just depending on how things are tracking, but just keeping them involved. That list of new initiatives, particularly giving them an update, a list of early in the process, and their opportunity to have input into that process as well.
Good one, thanks, Fee. Kate or Leah, anything more on the councillor angle?
Yeah, maybe I'll talk to how we went about dropping the draft budget a little bit. So we would just make sure we were really, really upfront with the councillors and exec in our planning stage and getting their approval. So we had it everywhere. We had it at the top of our briefing report, in the request, we had an exec summary, we had it in the body of the year report. So we just wanted to be really clear that we were not hiding anything by just dropping things out of the process. And then another big piece of that was also being really, really upfront with the community about that. And that was really important to the councillors. When they were agreeing to drop the draft budget, it came with we can do this, but we need to tell the community really early and be really clear about it. So that was a big part of the process for us. And it was also continuing to tell them that that was changing as well. Right up until we were about to go with our, get our budget in front of them, they nearly did a backflip and actually voted on going back out for a draft. So it was we just had to continually remind them. We had to show, it was getting pretty operational, showing them what the comms would look like going out into the public, just so they were really on board and happy with that we were mitigating the risks along the way, and that the benefits would outweigh all that. So that was a big part of the process for us, and will be similar with changing the format for engagement as well. We actually took that to briefing last week to councillors. And probably what I didn't mention before is a big part of our engagement plan is education. I really think one of the most important parts of engagement for the budget is educating your community on how much we deliver, all the services that council provide, but the gap in rate cap versus cost escalations and the limited funding that's available for anything new. So we're already showing them and telling them the plan along the way for all these pieces of the puzzle that will go out into the community, so that they know we're still connecting with them in different ways, even though the submission format will change.
Thanks so much, Leah. And we'll go to you in a sec, Kate, but I'll just note that we're going to get into questions after that. And we've had at least 30 people join since I originally said, and it's great to see 147 online. Well done, everyone. Good turnout. Obviously, everybody's very excited about budget in August of 2023, which is a very good effort from all of you. But in the chat, if you would like to ask any other questions to the panel, you are welcome to. We will try and get through as many as we can in a minute. From those, we'll probably start with the ones, though, that were submitted online. Kate, any thoughts on councillors and or exec kind of management through that sort of changed process?
Yeah, I'll just iterate some of the key points Leah made is when you launch your budget, be very clear and upfront. Have a no surprises approach whenever you can. And that constant reminder, I had the same slide that was presented think 10 times. And when we got to the pointy end of the budget development, it was like, oh, when are we going out to public? And we're like, just go back and do a quick recap. The extra information I probably think is good to add is we were really prepared in the event that people were going to object of not having a draft budget to comment on. And we didn't need to use those comms. We didn't need to rely on it at all, which was really surprising. We had one elderly member of the public that looks at the draft budget through the library every year. They came over and met me, and yeah, that was it. One single person who probably has a date claimer in their diary, and that was surprising. The other thing is having just measured the outcome. So if you are doing it, we went from, we were able to show how the community input influenced the budget and particularly the project's alignment. So there's about 12 projects where they're already in the budget. The community got to do really quality submissions to our council. So we did a night, and the level of those presentations was out of this world. I was so amazed by the professionalism that the community had when they presented their submissions. And we had a good result at the end of people having ideas. We listened to it and we could come back and close the loop with them in the final budget. Rather than the 30-ish submissions we got every year on the draft budget that we actually couldn't make any changes at that point in time. So that was the difference.
Amazing. Thanks, Kate, for that. Okay, everyone, we're going to switch to questions so we get to what members have asked rather than us. We could talk about budget and engagement for 2 or 3 hours without any real trouble. So we're going to pull up stumps there on sort of an overview of the process has been there, and we'll do our best to share these slides and everything at a later stage so you can see those timelines. But we're going to jump into questions, and as we go, I'll do my best to post them in there so you can see the wording of the questions as well. We have covered a bit of what are in some of these questions, so just putting that out there up front. But if there might be other things that panel members see, or that we can maybe go into a little bit more detail for some of them as we go along. First one was from, thank you, Jason, from Ballarat, and we've touched on a little bit of this one, but I just thought in case there was anything more or any more detail you might think about, I might go to you, Leah, on that question from Jason.
Yeah, I love this question, Jason, because I literally just had a meeting with our social research planner this morning, because we've got our draft ready on our Let's Talk platform, ready to go for our community engagement survey. And I was rereading it last week, and I was thinking we are just not being clear with the community how limited the influence this can have on the budget. So we're going back to just tweak that messaging around it. I mean, I think the pieces of, we've got so many touch points throughout the whole cycle of educating the community, which is going to include multiple videos that go out through socials for them to kind of understand the constraints and how much we do already. But I just got a really nice snip of the wording from our social researcher that I'd like to read out that really answers that. So we're going to tweak some of the introduction to the survey to say something more like, the city uses most of our rates to pay for core services that provide everyday value, like examples like waste, road maintenance, infrastructure, that sort of thing. We have a smaller part of the budget that is divided annually between new projects and initiatives. We're asking you to help us understand your priorities for that part of the budget. So I think that's a really, we need to be as clear as we can about that limited influence that they have. And also we'll have in the messaging that it's a lot of the budget is developed based on the council plan that's had extensive community engagement. So
thanks so much, Leah. And I should have said, for those who maybe the 40 or 50 people who watch this later that won't maybe be able to see the chat as easily, I think Leah's answer had it, but the question was about how do we message can you give about what really can be influenced in this space? So thank you, Leah, for that. If there's no other input there from Kate, or sorry, Fee, did you want to jump in on that one?
Yeah, I was just going to say that was our focus with our February engagement session. It was really that driving that education through, and that's where I pulled together a presentation and just talked through, this is what our revenue looks like, these are the constraints around our revenue, this is the bucket of expenditure, and as Leah pointed out, just tying it back to that council plan. So we talked about what our services were, explained all of those services, how many there are, the size of the community, the size of the road network, just to give the a perspective of what we have to manage. Yeah, really that around that education piece, the capital program, the types of dollars we need to put into that, and going back to that bucket of money that's available. So very similar to Leah's approach.
I can't remember the number, but a previous mayor of ours used to love being able to quote the number of toilet seats that the council was trying to keep up with and maintain. It was just a great number that you kind of don't realise just what it takes to maintain our asset base. Good one. We're going to keep going to the next question because we're going to whack through some of these before and get everybody out before the 1:30. We've touched on this one a little bit. The question I'll pop in the chat is, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to do it to everyone because it's very easy to do the replies to the last person that's written to you. How did you engage the community around the budget, website, phone poll, and what questions format was the engagement around? I know we've talked about the process from everyone so far, but this question's actually a little bit more direct. What actual things did you do? what were the channels, if you like? And let's just assume there's something on the website for everybody. I think we all need to get there, even though I know that's not as that's not a massive thing for small rurals necessarily. Not everybody has the super fancy website portal, but that's one part of it is online. But what else was out there in terms of engagement or questions or approaches? And I
guess for us, we had published information in our newspapers and our media that gets to the residents. We also had an online survey on our website and published information on our website regularly. That was really our approach. And the engagement sessions that we ran were online as well.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. I'm just going to, this next question is a little left field, but the one is, how many years out are you budgeting for each PSP area? Wow, if you're out down to that level, I'm very impressed, but I'll keep going. And how are you ensuring that you acquit DCPs, ICPs or ICs received across the lifetime of those DCP, ICPs correctly? Now, Kate, Leah and Fee, I don't think you guys have, we've only got a little bit of active stuff in that space at the moment. I might take that one unless I'm seeing a hands up at the moment. The DCP one, all I would say to that one is that FinPro does have a separate special interest group that is working a lot more on DCPs more broadly. So email myself or Gab and we can plug you into that. I'm sure possibly this person already is from Whittlesea already is plugged into that. Otherwise, get serious about your capital planning over the next 4 years. Be really clear what is in there for your delivery as council in the plan versus that in-kind stuff. That's all I'd say. Is if I was going to give the number one thing I keep in mind when we're looking to forward plan DCP, ICP across the lifetime of those, there's income stuff. There's some really important things in planning, but they tend to sort themselves out through the planners. More importantly, the capital delivery clarity is all I just give a little shout out to there for that one. Now we have some other questions that have come in as we've been going along, and I'm just going to scroll up and we think we've covered off this. Did councillors want to be involved in the annual action development earlier question, a little bit earlier, but maybe Kate, you've got annual actions in your sort of stream as well. Are they all part of the one thing, or how do councillors earlier on that separately, or is it all one process? Maybe if you could just speak to that a little bit.
Our management usually put forward the annual plan actions, but there's a lot of early engagement with councillors that make sure that the alignment is there. And the community also, by having upfront engagement, that's also really good to validate, have we got those annual plan actions correct? But the tough chat about nutting those down actually comes quite late in our councillor workshops for us, usually around March.
Yeah, similar for us at Bendigo too, that generally the councillors aren't seeing it until towards the end of the process.
Good one. Thank you. There's another question there about fees and charges, our favourite appendix to each of our budget processes. I think we're down to 800 and something lines now at Bendigo. Do any of you on our panel present or do anything about that in terms of consultation, or how does that work maybe at each of your councils, or is that too operational?
I'm happy to start, it'd be different. So last year the second part, we tried to use a participatory budget feedback loop where we took all of council services, the cost and income from those, and gave the community idea of using a slide to go, if you want to increase this, you got to take money away from somewhere. It was a really difficult tool for staff and the community to use, so we're not using it this year. But what it did do for the people that worked with us to give us that intel, it really validated that the community was really happy with where we actually are putting our income, where our money goes, I should say. So there's very little movement, which is quite validating. This year, we're going to go to some of the bigger financial levers and ask the community comment on, do you think council should be exploring these, or what ideas you may have for council to consider? And so they might be things at the higher level of, what do you think about council selling land to pay for major community infrastructure projects? What do you think about borrowings? So that's where we're going this year. Fees and charges, that intel, two parts I'd probably comment on. The fees and charges, that intel comes from our direct customers that and our service areas of council that get that feedback, and we get that through other mechanisms, not through the budget engagement approach.
Sure. Yeah.
And the second part to that, which I've lost my train of thought. Sorry, I've
No, that's okay. I'm sure that I think you might have had two parts in there already. That's great. While you're thinking about that one, just a question that I've reposted that was a little bit earlier in the chat, but just so it's easier for our panel. Did you have target audiences? A lot of submissions are from the same sporting groups and community groups. How did you facilitate or work through that? Now, Kate's just been, so I'll give her a moment just to gather her thoughts again. Anything, Leah or Fee, in that space?
Yeah, I'm happy to start. So we definitely, this is why we're trying to move away from that kind of old school submission type engagement, because that is basically, we get a lot of those kind of organised community groups submitting things. While we've got a whole team whose job it is to know what participation rates each club has, and what kind of asset conditions all their assets are in. So our plan for next year, because we're moving more to a survey style out there community engagement, but as part of our plan, we're actually going to have direct communication that goes out from our sport and rec team, and then our community partnerships team to their kind of main community groups, to give them education on like the shift in the budget engagement, but also about how all this stuff works, direct them to their website. And so that almost like that team becomes the main point of contact for those type submissions, so they can just have a direct conversation about where their particular group and their assets are at in that renewal program and why, because they're already doing that. That already exists, and that's the main channel for that type of thing. Another part of that for us is making sure that we're set up with the comms and the collateral to say all the different ways you can contact us. So if it's a CRM, like it's something that needs fixing or it's broken, that all those channels exist. So we've got all that set up as part of our comms that will hit in different ways throughout the year, and there'll be a spiel on that in our actual survey. And then also our community grants program, that's a big way to channel people into that, where they're actually, that is actually a pot of money you can apply for, that exists. So that's how we're trying to frame that.
Thanks so much, Leah. Fee?
I guess for us, we haven't channeled any particular audience. We've really encouraged participation and input from anyone. But just being on the other side of the floods, we've had a lot of our responses were around floods, drainage, doing more to improve in that space. So we just encouraged any input.
I feel like we had 2 years of COVID and 1 year of floods here at Bendigo. Like realistically, the community's mind is on the more, like it's not necessarily, whereas that's why sometimes this targeted engagement with groups that are already doing it can sometimes take away, like it's quite different to what you're talking about, Fee. That's great, thank you. Thank you, Gabby from Surf Coast, and we've also had Carly from Whitehorse, others that's put in questions. I feel like those ones are general ones that we've sort of covered. So I'm just going to let those, even though I haven't posted them in the chat, don't feel like you're not special. They've been covered, I think, in some of those ones, although feel free to post. I do like this latest question, though. I've just reposted it there from just a little bit up. Coming up to the next elections, get your political hats on, guys. Any sensitivities or any planning that you're thinking about in advance, given we're going to be coming into what do we call it, the fourth quarter, and running into, which for us, we're going to have different ward setups. It's going to be very interesting. 9 wards here rather than 3 split one, and everybody's got a different journey they're going on for that, but there will be some change this time for that. Any thoughts or early thoughts, maybe they are, about what that might mean for your councils?
For me, similar to what John's just posted from John Brockway, make sure you've budgeted for election costs. That's probably the key thing we need to make sure we've done.
And hopefully for those fines that come in as revenue and just dribble in for years afterwards as well sometimes. No other thoughts for that one?
Yeah, I'm happy to chip something in there. I guess we already had this on our radar when we were doing the 23-24 budget. So we were being very clear on the 4-year planning, particularly for new capital and what's in that outlook. We plan to have that as an attachment to our quarterly, because we have that quarterly time locked in with councillors already. We want to use it to look forward and remind them of how much we've already committed to, and just keep telling that financial story as much as we can in that challenge. So the briefing paper we took to them last week about our planning also had significant information on the financial constraints and parameters we're already operating within. So we're just selling that message as much as we can, so that we're not getting crazy blowouts and promises of things for their legacy like that. I suppose where our one of our directors likes to call himself a COD with a K, killer of dreams. We're just killer of dreams at the moment, but that's the reality, and that image that comes with the gap between CPI and the rate cap and the compounding impact of that. Like, we just can't sell that message enough and put that in front of them in enough different angles. So I think that's kind of our mitigating factor for, what can happen in an election year through a budget process.
Thank you. I will add to that we've struggled to do in other places significant service review changes to go downwards, because that can then become a hot button election issue. So I think some strategic councillors are actually saying, hold on, just hold on until you get to the start of a new term, rather than try and close a pool just before a council election or something of that nature. Sorry, Kate, over to you. And then we've got one more question after that, and we're almost there. Thanks, Kate.
I was almost going to say the exact same thing, Nathan. It's probably, this is the time that you actually really need to start bringing together your back pocket of information, roll it out this year, get the feedback, so that you're in a very good position to start discussions with the new council term. And like most parts across Victoria, the change from your single council wards will be an impact that we need to start planning or thinking about what could happen.
Amazing. We're going to finish off with a slightly more simple one, hopefully, but just a quick touch on from each of our panelists to finish there. This is back up in the chat there. internally, when it gets down to it, and not everybody's going to have these size teams, so we're going to start with Fee for this question. Do you break up your staff across the areas for budget? How does that work for your teams? And then software, can you just touch on how that's being pulled together, or what maybe you're using to sort of do that? And Excel is fine if that's all it is, kind of thing, for some of the budgeting stuff, of course. Fee, we might go to you first.
Sure. So being a fairly small council, we only have 2 accountants in the team and myself, so we don't have the luxury of having staff being allocated to different areas or directorates. So we really just all have the same team supporting the whole business. We don't have any specific software. We use Excel. We use Synergysoft for our finance system and Biz. So reporting is out of Biz, and that's our budgeting tool at the moment, but mainly Excel. So our labour budget sort of all pulled out of our payroll system into Excel, and we do all our modelling in that.
Amazing, thanks. Leah?
Yeah, look, we're pretty lucky. We've got a really good sized management accounting team for local government. So we've got four management accountants who business partner across different directorates. So they spend a lot of time one-to-one with managers and coordinators doing that kind of zero-based budget build. We've also got a strategic capital management team who kind of do an EOI process for new capital bids, and then they triage that so that the whole organisation's not kind of vying for projects that just aren't going to happen. And then we have Tech One, we're in the CI Anywhere in the cloud for our budget build. So we're pretty lucky, got some good resources.
Thanks, Leah. Kate, can you comment on those ones okay?
I can, I think. It's probably divvied up over 3 different teams. So the project management office, coordinates, facilitates all the operational and capital nominations and the process to get a decision there. Our corporate planners look after the annual plan and some of the reporting and analytics. And then our management accounting team, I think, is 4 people, and we've got a business partner model in play to do the operating budget.
Amazing, thanks. I did find one more question there from Gabby there further up that says to Kate, hi, can you please give some more examples of what Monash found to be most valuable for engaging on? Now, if that's too much detail and you feel like I've already covered it, we can just try and include it in some of the slides later, but just if you've got any quick response to that one, and then we might wrap this up.
Probably 3 parts. Council advocacy priorities is a good one. We got some really surprising results from the community last year. Councils wanting the community expecting council to do more in affordable social housing from an advocacy perspective was really good. Then it's just offering feedback on where council spends its money and the quality of services, and that was really validating. And the third part, we will keep the community project idea part alive. It's really important for our councillors to have that and to listen to the community on those ideas. So, and then our job then is to try and bring those 3 quite divergent pools of information together to get some good intel to influence decisions.
Fantastic. Look, thank you. For those that have their cameras on, can I just get a quick round of applause for our panel members? Much appreciated. Thank you. Yep, you can do the hands if you need to. That's good. Just wanted to say thank you to you guys. Thanks to everybody that joined. Great numbers today again. Once again, FinPro batting pretty hard on its own consultation and engagement. Well done. And thank you to Gab, as always, who brings us all together. Get excited about the conference. October 2023, set for success is the theme. So jump on the FinPro website, get your registrations, get it sorted if you haven't. It's that'll be coming soon for even more details on that. And of course, last thing is there are those 2 consultations, very exciting, on valuations, averaging and hardship that are out there on the Engage website at the moment. FinPro and others are doing work on that. Please keep an eye on the member updates if you're looking for input or want to use we say borrow with integrity when we work with other councils and don't have to rewrite whole submissions ourselves. So they will be part of member updates over the next little while for some of the not amazing detail in some of those ones from LGB, and way too much detail in other ones from LGB as well. So keep your eye out there for some of the current things on at the moment. But with that, thanks again to our panel members. Thank you to all for making time for a lunch and learn. And 1:29, I'm going to call an end to this one. It's been a pleasure. See you next time. Thanks all.